Here's Zola! He's got the shot and he scored! Lampard! That could be the championship! He done it! The greatest moment in the history of Chelsea Football Club!
Greetings, welcome back to Couch Critic. You got Dennis P, and I'm joined by a very special guest today from the London is Blue podcast, Nick Verlaney.
What's up? How are you doing?
If you don't mind, I'm going to call you Dr. Nick today because I'm just...
oh, no. Not a doctor.
I'm still gutted from this performance on the weekend, Chelsea versus Arsenal, so I'm in need of medical attention. So, so if you can't help me, let me know. But yeah, it's great to have you aboard. And what did you think of that game?
So we recorded our podcast yesterday, and it was it's super disappointing. So I think most people who listen to our show know that I hate Arsenal probably the most of any Premier League team. Yeah. And it's not because they're good at all or they consistently beat us or anything like that. There's this like elitist, we invented football, we play the right way, everyone else plays like they're in the medieval ages kind of, BS that I just loathe. And beating Arsenal always gives me such like a smug, just like a smug grin because it's like, you guys are just terrible. And we were terrible yesterday or Saturday. I mean, it was brutal to watch. Honestly, I didn't see much like the Spurs game earlier, Dennis. I didn't see any of that like trademark Chelsea fight. And, I think if you're going to be disappointed in anything like Maurizio was, it's the mentality and it's kind of that fight that was lacking.
It's unbelievable. My team is probably Liverpool. That's the one team that I just can't stand.
That's a good one to hate too.
For the exact same reasons as you'd probably say about for Arsenal. But it's exactly what you said. Like for whatever reason, this team is just not showing the passion and commitment on the pitch that you would expect to see like week in and week out. And it's actually becoming a bit annoying because like a lot of people are blaming the manager for this. Like the manager is supposed to be getting these guys up for the game. The manager's responsible for this. But like we've seen this team downgrade or down tools now for 3 different managers. Did it under Jose, did it under Conte, and now we're seeing it again under Sarri. And it's at some point it has to stop being about the manager. It has to be what we're actually putting on the pitch. Maybe we need to stop going to Opta to start finding players who are, like looking at the Opta stats to select these players and start actually looking at the mentality of these guys. Like it's starting to become a problem for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, so like in any scientific test, right? Like there are constants and there are variables, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at the constants over the last, let's call it, 6-7 years now since we won the Champions League,
right?
The constants are primarily the players, right? We've been through 4 managers, 5 managers since we won the Champions League, and outside of the 2 years that we won the title, where it felt like there was this, kind of really good atmosphere around the club that we were really making strides, that the team was playing good football. It's been very, very up and down. It's been, you don't know if you're going to get the Hazard, who just balled out in the Carabao Cup against Liverpool, absolute dynamo, best player in the world type, or if you're going to get the Hazard who played against Arsenal who barely had a touch. And it's, so if the managers are the variables, the constants of the players, right? And to me, that is, if the board are not looking at that as, or if a mysterious someday maybe Michael Ballack as a director of football isn't looking at this to see what the level needs to be up here.
Right.
Not on the pitch. Eden Hazard's amazing on the pitch, man. Like no one doubts his ability on the pitch. I think it's always about, is he up for this or not,
And what's interesting about that too is like, this is something that even his father has brought up in the past as well. Like that was the reason why he wanted to work with Jose Mourinho, because he wanted him to work on his mentality as a player, not so much as his application on the pitch, but his mentality is just not always at that level. And what we're starting to see now is it's permeating throughout the club. Like we're seeing a lot of guys that just don't have that, that killer instinct. And maybe it's, maybe this is just what modern day football has become. These players that just don't necessarily possess leadership qualities beyond the fact that they can, do some incredible things on the pitch. You know what I mean? Like it seems like there's a lack of leadership throughout world football, not just at Chelsea at this point.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, back in the day, if you thought about John Terry, there was a Rio Ferdinand. There was a Michael Ballack. There was pick another player. And now, I mean, if you look around world football, I mean, I think Sergio Ramos, even though he's a dirty player, is a leader, right? At Chelsea, I would consider Cesar Azpilicueta a leader, but he's not a leader in the JT mold, the fire, the grab you by the collar, make sure that you're in line type. He's a lead by example type.
Right.
But, if you have a team that doesn't necessarily jive with that style of leadership, it's not really that effective at times. And I think that's where this team has we've lost all these incredible leaders. We've lost Lampard, we've lost Terry, we've lost Drogba, we've lost Ashley Cole. Of course, Czech. And we've replaced them with players who were maybe more talented, but
in some cases, not all. Yeah.
But then maybe not quite ready for the big time up here.
Right.
Or maybe not quite ready to lead people. Right. And that's growth, man. Like every player goes through that, but I don't see after 6 years, I don't see a ton of that growth kind of making it through and showing up on Saturday against Arsenal. That sucked.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's you see them turn it on, because even the Carabao Cup first leg, I thought we played fantastic that game. I thought that we were unfortunate not to get a result in that game.
Agree.
And you could see the difference in the application, because like the style, everyone's saying, well, Sarri needs to change his system. And this is something I wanted to ask you about too. Like, his system needs to be tweaked in order for certain matches and whatnot. And we saw that happen at Man City, where we sat a little bit deeper and, we basically played on the counter. But do you actually think that is there a system that we can actually implement where we tweak it, but don't actually change the fundamental ethos of the system that is being implemented?
So I've thought about this over the last couple of days because I'm struggling to see how this team finishes fourth right now without goals. It's not possible. To me, I think there's a couple of factors that are at play. I think if you look at where we were from a passing perspective, just overall movement last year,
right,
where we are at this point in the year, this year, I think it's undoubtedly proven true that this is a better passing team, a better moving team than what we were last year.
Undoubtedly. Like, just the way we play out of the back now is unbelievable.
And that whole change has happened over a period of 6 months, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Where we have been really poor in previous seasons and where I think we're still very poor is as soon as it reaches the final third, it's like the team forgets what they were supposed to be doing.
Right.
And so it's odd to me because, I would say under Conte, under Jose, we played a lot more of a counterpunch, quick sprint, not pressing style where we allowed pressure, but we were so self-assured that our defense and our midfield was going to lock it down that it gave our attackers a little bit, of a cherry pick every once in a while just to go. Whereas now the team has to move as a unit, like a school of fish, for this thing to be effective. Mm-hmm. And I am not sure the conditioning is there to play a pressing style because it's just historically not what this group of players have done. And I'm not sure that the intricacy in passing needed for this thing to work in the final third is going to be solved by the end of the year.
No. And
so if you take those two things, and I've been thinking about this because like I love tactics. I love the chess part of the game. I'm really worried about this, and not because I want to blame certain players or I need to join the insane Willian hate bandwagon or any of this stuff. Like I don't, but I am worried about where how it changes. Now to answer your question, Sarri is responsible for drilling the team. Right, Sarri is responsible in my mind outside of like the players showing up for training and trying their best, he's responsible for setting up the team, setting up the tactics, making sure everyone knows when it comes to game day where they're supposed to be and why. Mm-hmm. When they go onto the pitch, like that's up to them, like it's up to them to kind of see out the game plan, and it's up to him at halftime to change it if it's not working. So we said on our show, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, I do think Sarri is responsible for what happened on Saturday just as much as the players are.
Absolutely. The reason being, for me, again, I think that no successful tactic will ever be implemented without the intangible things like desire, passion, commitment. And those things were lacking on Saturday for me. Outside of that, the fact that we all recognized that Ramsey was marking Jorginho out of the game. Like, everyone saw that, and everyone knew that was what was going on. And we still didn't come up with any sort of a system to like negate what was happening. You know what I mean? We still tried to play out the back, and we couldn't get Jorginho on the ball. And there was no sort of like switch that came, even in the second half. Granted, we had more possession, but at the same time, we weren't really hurting them with our interplay. We weren't hurting them with our, like our combinations. And the thing that I've noticed from the beginning of this season to what we're seeing now is we're not seeing a lot of overloads, like on one side of the pitch to create that mismatch. Like, we're seeing very static movement and not a lot of movement, really, right? So you'll see Alonso on one flank, he'll overlap with, if Hazard's playing in his left wing role, or if he's a false nine, that happen. But there's not enough box presence. There's not enough guys pushing forward to get us in positions where we can actually hurt them. And when he was at Napoli, the thing that I noticed was he'd always overload that left side of the pitch. So you see Jorginho, and you see Hamsik, you'd see Gulam when he was there, and all, like Mertens. They would all, interlock on that left flank and make these passing angles that made it very difficult for defenders to make decisions whether or not they wanted to engage on the ball or hold their position. And I'm not seeing that anymore. It's just we're not pulling defenders out of position.
I made the comment on our show that, to me, and I know you've watched a bunch of the old Napoli highlights from the last couple of years, because I think people are curious as to what's the difference, right? How did he get this team at Napoli of mostly unheard of players outside of Hamsik and a couple of others like Higuain? Mm-hmm. How did he get this group of players to so overperform their league level that they challenge the best Italian side of the last 35 years? Mm-hmm. Right? And I think he can't be a dummy if he's done that. So to me, I think the only difference is I think he has more talented players at Chelsea. I think that the facilities are better, that, all this stuff should hypothetically put Sarri in a better position to challenge for the league. I think the only difference I see is it looks like at Napoli, he had this team so bought in from a collective mentality and spirit perspective that they could run and chase and press all game, and it was rare that you would see them lose their focus, lose their positional awareness, and really that's a huge deal, right? Like if he doesn't have any number of if one Chelsea player doesn't buy in that's in that starting 11, I think the whole thing falls like a house of cards, because you see it in the movement, like you just said, in the final third. One of the biggest gaps that I see is whoever it is, Barkley or Kovacic, there is rarely they rarely press into the 18-yard box and create an angle for someone else. It's always trying to loop in and interchange on the wing. And I think that they need to cut in. And that's where Ruben, I think, was having success on the right, is he was willing to carry the ball to that line, bring up a defender to say, like, oh, crap, because he can shoot, right? So the defender comes up, and it creates space for Pedro or Hazard to cut in for another angle.
Absolutely.
And that's the way the team has to work. I don't see that from the left side at all, and I think that's to your point, I think that's a struggle.
Yeah, and the other thing that I've noticed with the left side too, particularly when Kovacic is playing, a Alonso has more license to get forward because Kovacic is sitting back to protect that left flank there. So he's not necessarily being used in the actual attacking move anymore. He's kind of the guy that's like the safety net if anything goes awry. And I just didn't see that at Napoli, and it's kind of like weird. But the other thing that you brought up that I thought was interesting is, the idea that he needs players that are basically going to run through walls for him. And given the makeup of this squad right now, I don't even think that he has his team. I don't think that, okay, so say for instance, somebody like Giroud, last year of his contract, Willian, last year of his contract, Hazard, Odoi, Pedro, Kovacic on loan. These guys aren't necessarily, from what I'm seeing, I don't think that these guys are actually buying in because they don't even know if they're going to be here like within the next 6 months or whatever. There's like, oh, whatever, I'll run around for a bit, but like if I get tired, man, I'm tired, man. I'm not doing that. Like who knows if you're going to even be here? That's the kind of things that I'm seeing mentally that is frustrating the hell out of me because we don't have a squad of his players. We have a squad of a mixed match of teams. You know what I mean? And like these guys don't necessarily may not be as devout as you would like them to be because they don't think they're going to be here next year or whatever, right?
Well, yeah, and I don't ever go as far as to like question professionalism because I don't know. The one thing that we don't know is how training goes on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, right? I mean, I wish we had that insight. I think we'd be able to speak more eloquently on the topic, obviously.
Yeah.
But I do think, kind of to your point, Chelsea is set up as, there's this amazing line from Game of Thrones that I love, which is chaos is a ladder, right? So essentially saying that the more chaotic it gets, there are people who can take advantage of that, right? And essentially chaos is a ladder for Chelsea means that even in the midst of this 8 managers in 8 months and all this other stuff that people, abuse Chelsea on, we've won the league 5 times since 2004.
Right.
It's unmatched. It's tied with United and it's unmatched by anyone else. So it's been successful, but you have to make, then I think your mentality point that you bring up is very, very accurate, which is, to me, if I'm a Chelsea player and I've seen the last 5 managers since I've joined get sacked because they yelled at me or the results weren't good enough or whatever, is human nature telling me maybe he's not going to be here next year, right? Like, why would I'm throwing out a hypothetical here. This is not a real scenario. Why would I try my hardest to learn this new system, to bust my ass, to press every game and wear out my legs after a World Cup year if I'm not even sure that this cat's going to be here next year?
Right.
And that's a terrible mentality to hold. But if you've seen that self-fulfilling prophecy play out before, I think it does become a little human nature-y. And then, people, the thing that always cracks me up is that people thought that when JT and Lamps and all these guys were here, that they had player power, right? Mm-hmm. They fired managers. They called Roman up, all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. You can argue that really hasn't changed at all.
Oh, no, but like the leadership has, though, right? Like it'd be different. It's different when JT's telling you this guy ain't the guy. And when Lamps is telling you this guy ain't the guy, and completely another thing when Willian's like putting emojis up on his like Instagram, just stupid shit like that. You know what I mean? Like that's what boils my blood. Like you haven't earned. I got into it on somebody on Twitter the other day, and they're talking about like I'm not having that. It's sorry he's got to do this and do that. I'm not having that. We have a team of leaders. We have a team of winners on this team. I'm like, yeah, we have a team of winners that play a certain brand of football. Like this is not the same style of football. Like, and even having said that, that was a while ago. Like, we can't keep looking back for 2-4 years and say that this is who we have. Like, guys get older, they fall in and out of form all the time. So to say that like this guy, well, sorry's the problem because he's making them play what they're not comfortable in playing. It makes no sense to me. First of all, if we remember, everyone thought that like the reason why everyone downgraded on when Conte was here was because he was playing a style of football that nobody enjoyed playing. It's not the in vogue style in Europe right now. Everyone wants to be possession based, move the ball quickly, attacking football. And now we bring in Sarri, who's probably become one of the dons in implementing that and then into that system, like one of the real, upper echelon managers in that respect. And we're seeing the exact same thing again. Like these guys just don't get up to play that style now. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I've struggled to say. I struggle with trying to coming to the conclusion that this is coming down to, the manager or the lack of, commitment. You know what I mean? From his aspect,
If you look at his comments, and I know that everyone's like laser focused on the post match press conference, right? Yeah, I think rightfully so. I mean, his comments were to me the most brutal takedown of a Chelsea team from a manager that we've seen, and it wasn't really wrong. I think when you look at the pundits out there, I'm always interested after these kind of like big blowout press conferences because we've seen them with Mourinho and Conte and all these other guys, right? Like we've had a history of really stubborn, very type A managers before.
Mm-hmm.
Sarri is so dedicated to his craft and his system that I think he felt insulted by the level of effort and mentality that happened on Saturday. And, like, honestly, the fans did too. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, we can be honest about that. I mean, so I think that was coming from a deep-seated place of, like, look, guys, like, we can't do that again, right? Like, that's unacceptable, not just from the fans who were apparently, Andy Saunders was at the game on Saturday. He said that there was a lot of hate for Jorginho, a lot of hate for Willian, and Kovacic when they all came, either off the pitch at the end of the game or were substituted. Right. And like, it's a bad look scoreline wise. It's a bad look effort wise. It's a bad look mentality wise. And it's a bad look for the fans to be already January 19th turning on this team, right? Like, remember when we didn't lose a game for the first 2.5 months of the year?
No,
I don't. I don't.
Neither do they.
So it's. I know everyone's locked in on those comments, and you can question the tact at using those stronger words to talk about a team of players who are all paid a ridiculous amount of money. I don't really have an opinion on it either way. Like whatever gets the job done for me, but I think there are going to be a lot of people who see how this team shows up on Thursday, and if they don't show up, he's probably lost them.
Okay, and what? Okay, but is that what it? Okay, what team do you expect to see show up?
Personnel-wise or mentality-wise?
Mentality-wise, like what? This is the problem that I have normally. Like whenever you see Chelsea look brilliant one week, and then the next week it's completely the opposite. So like. It's when he's saying that this team is very hard to motivate. I understand what he's saying because I see it all the time. And motivation just can't – you have to self-motivate yourself as well. Like I don't know if it's always going to be down to the manager screaming in your ear. And having said that, I don't even know like the same – like 3 different types of managers have said the exact same thing about this team. Like how can it be them at this point? It can't be.
Right. Well, and so I expect and I think because it's at home, I expect this team to come out like their hair's on fire. I really do. And it's not only a cup semifinal, pressure and excitement and, angst and all that stuff is already there for that.
Right.
It's a rival that you apparently hate the most, the players, because I've seen some of the most contentious Chelsea matches over the last 7 years be against Spurs, right? Mm-hmm. And you're coming off of getting your ass kicked. Like
another derby, another rival.
All of those things come, and you haven't beat Spurs in 3. Oof. All those things, like I don't care, like the comments hurt your feelings or whatever, but like I don't care. All those things add up to you. You better show up, and it better be for 90 minutes, and it better be with passion, and there better be the sense from the fans that everyone's locked in on winning this cup.
Right.
Right. And like, that's the only way winning's the best deodorant, but that's the only way that this storyline goes away for a little bit is if they come out and prove it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And what would you say? Okay, because again, Twitter's just gone awry like the last little while, just because nobody wants to see us lose to Arsenal, but at the same time, it's just like I was like debating with some friends at the bar, and we're talking about he's got to change the system, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to see that happen. I want to see a philosophy at Chelsea for once. I want to see somebody implement a philosophy and see it through. So what would you say? Would it be best for us to change the system, or would it be best to just stomach through the growing pains of learning this new system, and then find the players that can actually even and implement the right players into the system over time? Because let's just be honest right now, we don't have the players to play the system that he wants to play right now. I don't think so, at least.
Whatever gets us fourth, I don't care. Like, I honestly don't. Like, you laugh, but like this conversation, if you move this conversation forward to May and we finish fifth, nobody cares about it. Like, no, like honestly, like another Europa League campaign, the payment, from player sales will inevitably go. Hazard will inevitably go. Like, and he might already be gone, but like you're doing everything that you can to keep him right now, right? Whatever gets you fourth, I don't care. Like, I think a sensible solution is if you're going to man mark Jorginho out of the game and basically, should be his shadow all game, you need to bring either Kovacic or N'Golo back so that he has a passing angle so that he can get freed up.
It's funny. We did that against Liverpool, like the first game in that what was it, the cup game?
Yeah, the Carabao Cup game, yeah.
That's exactly what they did. That was the tactical switch that I noticed. The Kovacic came a lot deeper to partner with Jorginho, and we were able to play – actually, no, it was Seth Fabregas that game. And we were able to play through from there, and we're just not seeing that anymore either. Like, the outlet ball has become Alonso or Azpilicueta on the right flank,
Well, what's really happening, is because they're not bringing one of our other two midfielders back, David Luiz and Rudiger are shouldering a lot of the passing burden to advance the ball. Yeah. And that's not necessarily a problem because both of them are talented enough to make those passes. But at the end of the day, that's not the ideal scenario, because then you just basically have a guy marooned on an island who's not who's supposed to be your metronome, who's not ever receiving the ball in an area where you can do anything with it. So that's a problem. So they have to fix that. I don't think it would be a terrible idea to try a 4-2-3-1, but then to be honest with you, the 4-3-3 is a better defensive formation because like you were saying, Kovacic and Conte can split out if the fullbacks advance too far and make that coverage. If you switch to a 4-2-3-1 and let's just say N'Golo or Kovacic is back there, your wingers have to actively participate in the defense again, and Hazard hasn't done that in essentially 2.5 years. So, then you have a whole other set of problems, I think. But I don't really know how this is going to be changed. If he is stubborn, and I want to hear your thoughts on this too. Like, if he's stubborn and persists with this 4-3-3, and let's pretend, for God's sake, that Higuain comes into the side and starts banging in goals. He's going to look like a genius.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, my guy's here. So we're good now. Everyone can, shut up. And, I got this. Playing beautiful. We're scoring 4 goals a game. My guy just scored a hat trick. We're all good. Like, if he doesn't, we sell Morata, and Giroud is our only other real option as center forward, a guy who hasn't necessarily banged him in this year. The formation has to change, and he has to do something different. Otherwise, he will not be here at the end of the year. I don't see a scenario. He has a very specific edict. Fourth, good cup run.
Yeah. Agreed. Like a lot, unfortunately, is hinging on 31-year-old Higuain coming into the squad and, hitting the ground running, which it's a lot to ask right now, and, the only real advantage I can see to this right now is the fact that he will be coming in. the fact that Sarri doesn't really change his system at all, it means that chances are Higuain will know it, and that might lead to him actually adapting and adjusting a lot quicker than some might. I don't like the January window just because it's very, very difficult to get guys that have the time to implement a system and like hit the ground running. This may be a different situation in that he may already be up to speed with what we want from him. I'm hoping whether or not, coming to the Prem for the first time at 31, the speed, the power, whether or not that's going to be a factor, for a guy like Higuain who's played all over the world, really. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a toss-up. I'm worried.
After what we've seen this year from a striker output perspective or a forward output perspective, outside of Eden, who's obviously, I think, had a pretty good year overall, we need something. We need to try something else. Now, I think most people, and I think I count myself in this group, I think Pedro's our starting right winger without a doubt. He's contributed 7 goals and a couple assists, so his output is far better than Willian so far. Hazard starts on the left. Higuain starts in the middle. I would move up Callum's playing time as much as I possibly could if I were the manager, trying to keep him. I feel like the fan base is going to lose their collective mind.
They already have.
Yeah, like if he leaves and becomes the next freaking Ousmane Dembele, we're gonna feel so dumb.
But again, he has his mind set on leaving. Like, there's not much we can do at this point. Yeah, you can play him, but is that really going to change the situation? Aside from that, where does he play? Like, you're saying you want to start Pedro on the right. Like, is he going to get the amount of minutes? Like, are we going to be able to play Hudson? Where is he going to play? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
I
don't know. I honestly wish I did know, or I was smart enough to make those decisions. I mean, so Dan and I, when we did our, so Dan Dormer's a co-host of the podcast,
right?
When we did our Dan and Nick show last week, because there was no one else to do it with us, we identified.
Anytime, man, I'm ready.
Yeah, there it is. Boom.
Yeah.
We kind of looked ahead at the schedule to see where could Callum get some minutes. I think Callum plays. I think he obviously plays on Thursday to me.
Yeah.
Or he starts the FA Cup at the weekend.
Either one.
Maybe both. Probably not both, but maybe both. Mm-hmm. And then after that, there are a couple of decent opportunities for maybe a start in the league, which is interesting to me. If we have some tired legs or want some squad rotation, or we want to test out combinations with Higuain or whatever the case might be. I think there's an opportunity before the end of the window to have given him pretty significant minutes in the last month and a half. I was lucky enough to see him play the full 90 against Nottingham Forest in the third round of the FA Cup a couple of weeks ago at Stamford Bridge. I mean, he looked dynamic and even assisted Morata twice. I mean, you can't suck if you're doing that.
He just put it right on his head, though. It was perfect, right? Like,
it's almost impossible,
right? I was able to see him for the Europa League game. I saw his first goal. Actually, I was with Dan and Chidge actually for that.
Ah, dude, yeah, I love those guys.
Yeah, and it was just like I was obviously elated. I'm like, yeah, we saw Callum's first goal together, man. Can you believe it? It's great. But yeah, I think that's kind of the rotation of the squad is kind of my main indictment of Sarri at this point. I understand that he has to trust you in his system, and there's a million moves that you have to learn in order to get in, and also the maturity that comes with not just being able to attack, but also defend, and also recognize transitions. So transitioning from defense to offense and offense to defense, that is where teams are most vulnerable, mainly. If you don't understand or you don't have the awareness to transition or recognize danger when you're transitioning from offense to defense, defense to offense. That's where things like when we're talking about movement and stuff like that, that's when that stuff starts coming in. So I understand he needs to trust that you understand that stuff. And, you know, like in Callum's case, that stuff's maybe not as prevalent in, you know, youth football as it is in, you know, professional, you know, first team football. So I understand the application that they're taking the time with him there. But having said that, it's taken him, you know, it's taken him saying that he wants to go to like Germany for them to actually give him that chance to show that he's actually learning these things, you know? So I don't know. It bothers me that he hasn't really rotated the squad as much as I thought he would have.
I'll give your followers a sneaky preview to a story that we were able to record with Ruben Loftus-Cheek when we were in Cobham. We were talking to him, and it'll show through when you listen to the episode, but we were talking to him about like what's been the kind of most difficult transition this year for you. You played a number of different roles, and like, you know, you played on the right, you've played in the middle, you played on the left. Like you're a multifaceted player, but you know, also I'm sure you want to kind of have a consistent, you know, position. And he said the most difficult part was drilling him defensively, making sure that he knew where he was supposed to be, because the school of fish has to move a certain way, right? And for us, we were really interested by that, and we'll, you know, when you listen to the episode, you'll kind of see his perspective a little bit more. But the defensive part of Hudson-Odoi's game and Barkley's game and all of these kind of younger players is probably the most difficult part of playing in a Sarri system. I mean, for this thing to look beautiful depends on absolute pinpoint positioning and movement. And, you know, I think these guys are just in the middle of a really long learning process with it.
I agree. The next thing that I wanted to touch on, and I wanted to get your take on whether you think, I mean, it's obvious to me that we're playing players out of position, and the mentality that he's trying to establish is attacking, aggressive style of football, you know, high press, win the ball back, recycle possession, is not really how we've been playing for the last 4 or 5 years in terms of how the mentality has been formed. I feel like under Jose, and even under Conte for that matter, the mentality has always been play it safe and don't make mistakes. And what we're seeing with Sarri right now, he's saying take risks, push the ball forward, you know, put the ball into those dangerous areas. This is where we want to be, you know, most effective. And, you know, I look at like someone like Cesar Azpilicueta. Cesar is probably one of the great defenders we've ever seen at the club, as far as I'm concerned. Man defender. But his mentality is just that. His mentality is to defend. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be the one that's going to be bombing down, you know, the right flank and, like, you know, taking on his man and putting in a telling ball for somebody to attack. He's the guy that may, you know, get to, you know, like 3/4 in, hit an early cross, and then, you know, automatically retreat because he doesn't want to be caught out of position. So I think that one of the biggest things that Sarri's struggling with right now is just coaching out that old school mentality of like, play safe, be cool, don't make any mistakes, we'll catch them on the counter. Like, be more proactive and be more brave on when you're playing the ball forward. You know, like, that's what I think is one of the aspects of this game that's lacking right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you see it a lot too. In the Conte system, and my way oversimplistic way of putting this is the ball just goes around the pitch, right? Goes around and back, and then sometimes there will be a diagonal over the top, or you'll find a cutter and you'll be able to kind of make something out of that.
Yeah.
You still see a lot of that in this team. You still see a lot of the side-to-side passing. You still see a lot of standing around in the final third. You still see, you know, some of the things that I think really irked people about Conte's final season with us kind of manifest itself in this quote-unquote Sarri ball. I think the only difference is we're less clinical now than we were under Conte, which is not good for obvious reasons. But that to me is a major difference. Is like, we created way less chances under Conte, but we, you know, had a much higher percentage of conversion. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it seemed like we took more of our chances under him than we have under Sarri. So
Without doubt. Having Diego Costa definitely helped with that. And for whatever reason, Alonso was so much more effective going forward in that system as well. People are saying he's not cut out to play fullback. He's more of a wing back. I don't even know if he's playing fullback for us right now because we're so attacking all the time. It's still a wing back to me. Like I don't see any difference in what he's doing on the pitch in terms of getting forward and getting in the box. It's just he's not finishing. He's hit so many guys. He's hit so many posts. It's just I don't know. But
you also see, final point on this, you see this triangle of terror developing between a sometimes over-aggressive David Luiz, a very much over-aggressive Marcos Alonso, and a not really defensive midfielder in Jorginho on that left-hand flank. And if you watch the Arsenal game, you watch the Spurs game, you even watch the City game, teams are rarely targeting our right-hand side because Rudiger and Dave are so solid. And typically N'Golo is a part of that defensive movement, but kind of further up the field.
Sure.
I think that is it's a problem. That triangle of terror right now is legit. And it's something that has to be figured out. And I'm not even an Alonso hater. There are a lot of people out there who can't stand him or whatever. My whole take on this is whatever 11 players are on the pitch, there's one of two things that are happening. Either Sarri has a legitimate, terrible feeling about these players and will only play guys that he really, really likes or that he has over for dinner on Sunday nights, or he's picking the best players that he sees in training because they've earned it, right?
Well, that's definitely a factor. I would say that Alonso, he's not ideal for the system, but at the same time, given what we have on the pitch, he's essential because of his stature. He's tall. He can win aerial balls. He's obviously an outlet to build attacks from as well because he can bring the ball down and start playing. So there's all sorts of different things that we're not he can man mark. We can man mark him in the box. He's great from set pieces. So these are the things I think that are coming to the fore when we're talking about utilizing him over somebody like Emerson, who we all would agree is probably better attacking down that left flank and also better at getting back if he gets caught out because he's faster.
Yeah, Emerson's definitely faster. No one is arguing with that. But he's not earning it, right? Or at least if you believe in the Dan will kill me for saying meritocracy for the 90 billionth time this year, but if you believe in a football meritocracy where the best players who train the best, the most consistent play, then what you're yelling at Alonso about is being better in training than his competition.
But is it down to the actual? Because it could just be come down to stature. Because I feel like the only reason why he's actually getting so much more playing time than Emerson right now is the fact that he's number one, a good striker of the ball. He's great in the air, and because we've become so diminutive in terms of the 11 guys on the pitch, we don't have a lot of height in the squad. He's become one of the guys that we're using to make up for that lack of height in the midfield and also going forward. So it might just be out of consequence that he's playing over Emerson more so than the fact that he's actually better suited for the actual style of football we're trying to play.
Maybe. I think you make a good point about that, but at the same point, to me, you would see more of Emerson rotated if it was just a height thing, right? If it wasn't just a height thing. If Sarri is dependent on stature alone, then Emerson should never play because he's never going to be bigger than Alonso. But
right.
Left backs typically aren't the biggest guys on the pitch either. So my guess is that Emerson doesn't get the system, doesn't understand it as much, doesn't have as good a passing range, and maybe just doesn't work as hard in training, and that's why he's not playing. I would prefer to believe that, as a person who believes in drilling these guys and how the training sessions might work, than just because of tall. It
seems weird, but when you look at it, if all things are equal and he's taller, who's getting in, right? That's what it could just be as simple as that. I just don't understand how you can consistently play somebody who's been completely out of form for months now. Let's be honest, He's been torn apart so many times this season, and you still go back there. Not that like when I've seen Emerson come into the game, he's wowed me. Like I haven't seen a game this year where I was like, wow, Emerson was just incredible. Like, when he came on, or, and these are like against lesser opponents as well. So that's one caveat to it as well. But like, I do understand, he hasn't played a lot of football the last little while. He's coming off a pretty serious injury when he came to us, and to even get back into the swing of playing takes some time. Like we're seeing it even with Ross Barkley, like very same. I would say the same for Kovacic. Like he hasn't really played a lot of football over the last 3-4 years, and he's now playing week in, week out, and in the Premier League, which is obviously, a lot more,
it's a whole different ball game, man.
Completely different, right? So those are the things that I'm noticing myself. But I don't know. Like, what do you think? Should we just wrap it up there and get some predictions for the next couple of matches?
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, so what do you got for Spurs coming up?
I have to believe that we're going to win 2-0.
2-0.
I have to believe it. I think we're going to advance. I think the team will come out with the right mentality. And, I think what this team and what this fan base needs desperately right now is to believe that the manager and the players are aligned and that they are trying to push for this 4th spot. And, United's coming on strong and has a more favorable schedule. Arsenal has a slightly worse schedule than us, but we need to believe in this Carabao Cup game when there's a lot on the line that this team's going to come out and fight. So I'm going to go with a 2-0, and I say that with I hope that's right.
Okay. I agree. I think that this is more of a morale game. Like we have to show that we have fight. And given the fact that we're going to be playing against a team that is going to be without 2 of its better players in Dele Alli and Harry Kane, and Son, actually, who's been fantastic for them this year. We have to – there's a pride thing there. Like if we come out of that game and we don't show the same sort of like fight and, like endeavor to get past them, it's at home. It's really going to be like, debilitating. So I'm going to say 3-1. I know it's – I know. But
okay.
I'm going to say 3-1 in extra time. Because it does go to extra time. It's not the away goal rule doesn't count in this, right?
Yeah, I believe it will go to extra time.
Yeah, so I'm going to say we nick it in the extra time, then get a 3-1.
All right.
With the Sheffield Wednesday, man, I don't know. I assume that we will get the win, whether or not it's going to be pretty or, who will playing. Like I'm assuming that we'll probably see a fair amount of rotation. And hopefully we'll see something like I don't even know. Like none of the young kids are going to be getting into that game. I don't think in terms of obviously Ampadu and Hudson-Odoi, but I don't see anyone else from the under the U21 squad getting in.
Yeah, I think the Sheffield Wednesday game should not be taken lightly. But let's pretend that Sarri does this. Let's pretend that he puts out a quote unquote full strength squad for Thursday night because it's a cup match that right. is it's a big match for us. Mm-hmm. And then he decides to go a slightly younger route for the Sheffield Wednesday game. I think you could easily see Callum Hudson-Odoi. I think you'd easily see Ampadu. I think you'll see Barkley. You might see Christensen, of course. You might see an Emerson, in that game. Probably a rotation game, but the FA Cup is still really special, so I'm hoping that it's a good balance either way.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up there. Nick, really appreciate having you on here, man. If you have anything you want to shout out, please do. I know you guys have that foundation that you guys started up, Chelsea. Is it Chelsea Cares or
Chelsea Together? Yeah. So if you guys go to @TogetherChelsea, we were just kind of the spark for this thing, but it certainly is a movement that applies to I think 99% of Chelsea fans, which is we're just against discrimination. At matches and kind of forever. Honestly, I think it's it's far past time that the fans kind of did their own thing and stood up for what's right. And we're happy to put our name on it. I know there's been, some pushback from the crew who might, be stuck in their ways a little bit, to be blunt about it. But it's something that I'm really proud of, and I will always support. And so at Together Chelsea, would love to have people go follow that account and kind of be a part of the movement. We're working with everyone, so walk through the door and we can make sure that there's a spot for you. And we're kind of working on what that second phase is going to be from like an action perspective. But yeah, it's not the Chelsea Song Police. It's not, any of these things that will get called out. It's a group of people who think discrimination is wrong. And especially as it's tied to this team that we all care about so much. It sucks, man. It sucks to hear all the Y-word stuff and all the racist stuff, and it has to stop. It just does.
Yeah, so, I agree wholeheartedly, and like it's something that I've always taken a stand to here in Toronto as well. Just activism groups and whatnot. So it's near and dear to me as well. And like we all, I know for myself, I didn't start following Chelsea because of the supporters. I followed Chelsea because of the men and women that work in the club and the guys on the pitch. And as a result of my love for Chelsea, I've come to understand and love the people that are associated with it from the supporters aspect as well. And it's a family, and until we all come to grips with the fact that it's not, we have to be accountable for ourselves first before we can start pointing the fingers at other people. It's never going to get better. So I'm a firm believer, like all this, the Y word and all that stuff, the pointing of the fingers of that is more detrimental to us than it is to other people, because we have to be accountable to ourselves first before we actually take action on other people.
And on this Martin Luther King Day, I would be, I think this is a perfect quote to kind of sum up where we're at with this, which is, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, right? So to me, that is it's kind of a hallmark quote for me, and something I take really seriously. And for Together Chelsea, Together Chelsea to draw, I think, such a really positive press reaction, a reaction from the club on Friday was something really special. And I just look, the more people you get on board with this thing now, the more actionable it becomes. I think the thing that Andy Saunders told me, as a small nugget of appreciation that I have for this thing already, he went to the Spurs away Carabao Cup game 2 weeks ago and the Arsenal game yesterday, or Saturday, I mean. He didn't hear one Y word the entire time he was in the stands. Oh. And, better is good, right? Better is good.
That is exactly where it starts. I really appreciate that, man. And let's do this again sometime, hopefully under better circumstances.
Yeah, let's do it after a win next time, huh?
That sounds good. All right, take care, brother.
All right, thanks, good.